Today I have a story about a flat tire, a sunburned smile, and a question that changed everything. He thought he was just passing through. She thought she was too broken to be seen. But when he pulled over on that blistering desert road and helped her without asking for anything in return, something shifted. "What are you doing tonight?" she asked, half a dare, half a plea. What followed wasn't a love story in the traditional sense. It was something messier, quieter, and realer than most people are ever brave enough to feel. Stay with me, because sometimes the smallest moment leads to the kind of connection you never see coming. Hey, this is the Tales Beyond channel, where we share real stories with unexpected twists. If you enjoy the video, make sure to subscribe and give it a like. It really helps our channel grow. Now let's dive into the story. I'm Jace Morgan. I'm 25. I live kind of everywhere and nowhere. I'm originally from Flagstaff, Arizona, but for the past year, I've been hopping from town to town, mostly in the Southwest. I work online freelance design, some social media gigs, a bit of crypto when I feel like gambling with the universe. It pays just enough for me to live the way I want. No plans, no real schedule, no roots. I spend my days chasing moments, finding new places, random towns, weird diners, canyons, beaches, people. I recently bought this beat-up old Dodge Challenger. Deep blue, 2 doors, loud as hell. Not perfect by any means, but it was my dream as a kid. Most people laughed when I told them I spent all my savings on it. I didn't care. It's the kind of car that makes you feel like you're in a movie. I'd drive through desert highways with the windows down, blasting 80s rock or lo-fi beats, just following the road. If I wanted to swim, I'd head to the lake. If I felt like meeting new people, I'd find a bonfire party or some town fair. Life wasn't perfect, but it felt alive. That day it was about 104 degrees out. I was somewhere between Phoenix and Tucson, just cruising along the highway, windows down, sunglasses on, sweat on my neck, music so loud the rear-view mirror was rattling. I didn't have a destination. I just wanted to see where the day took me. And then I saw her. There was this silver sedan pulled over to the side of the road, hood down, trunk open, and there she was, a woman maybe in her early 40s, wearing a black t-shirt and jeans, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. She looked frustrated, tired, and absolutely done with the world. I saw her glance at her phone, then up the road, then back at her car. I drove past her at first. Not going to lie, helping strangers wasn't exactly part of my brand. But something in my gut twisted. Maybe it was the heat. Maybe it was that she looked like someone who'd been standing there for hours. Or maybe I just didn't want to be that guy who keeps driving. So I hit the brakes, threw the Dodge and reverse, and backed up the shoulder till I rolled to a stop beside her. I leaned over the passenger window and said, "Hey, everything all right?" She looked over, visibly surprised. "Flat tire," she said. "I called roadside assistance an hour ago." Still nothing. I stepped out of the car. The heat hit me like a wall, even worse than I'd expected. Her sedan had a shredded rear tire, definitely not going anywhere. "You got a spare?" I asked. "In the trunk," she nodded. I didn't think I'd be out here this long. She was sweating like crazy. Her shirt was sticking to her back, and I could tell she had already been through it. "Come on," I said. "It's a 5-minute job." She looked at me like I'd just offered to carry her across the desert. Seriously, I grinned. "Stay in the shade." I popped her trunk, pulled out the spare, grabbed the jack and wrench, and got to work. The pavement was so hot I could feel it burning through my jeans as I knelt down. But I'd done this 100 times before. Tire off, tire on, bolts tightened. Boom. Done. She watched in disbelief the whole time. "Wow," she said as I lowered the car back down. That was impressive. I shrugged, wiping my hands on an old towel I had in the back seat. "Not a big deal. I just didn't want to see you melt out here." She laughed for the first time maybe that day. It was this honest, tired laugh that said more than words could. Then she said it. "So what are you doing tonight?" I blinked. That wasn't what I expected. Honestly, nothing planned. I was just heading wherever the road takes me. She tilted her head. "That's how you live, pretty much." I nodded. "No roots, just freedom. New place, new people, new experiences." She paused for a second, looked down at the dirt, then back up at me. "That sounds kind of amazing." "Most people think it's reckless," I said, smirking. "Well, maybe I need a little reckless right now," she said almost to herself. Then she looked straight at me. "Would you mind some company tomorrow?" I laughed. You serious? She shrugged with a small smile. I haven't done anything spontaneous in years. If you're really just out to chase the day, I want to see what that feels like. I looked at her sweaty, a little sunburned, standing beside a half-broken car in the middle of nowhere, and I could tell she meant it not just in a curious way, like she really needed it. All right, I said. Pick a time. Give me an address. I'll swing by in the morning. She nodded, pulled out a pen from her glove box, and scribbled her hotel and room number on the back of her receipt. I gave a small wave, climbed back into my Dodge, and watched her in the rearview mirror as I pulled away. Something about that exchange stuck with me. I found a cheap motel just outside next town. Crashed early, but I couldn't stop thinking about her. What kind of life did she live that made her ask a total stranger to take her away from it for a day? I had no idea what tomorrow would bring, but I was damn sure it wasn't going to be boring. We drove for hours that day. No plan, no clock, just the endless road unspooling in front of us. Elena leaned her head against the window, letting the wind catch strands of her hair. She looked more peaceful than yesterday, still guarded, but no longer fragile. Somewhere between dusty highways and winding back roads, we stopped talking so much. It wasn't awkward, it was comfortable, like we didn't need to fill the silence anymore because just being there side by side was enough. Around late afternoon, we pulled into a nearly abandoned town, a population sign half faded, a diner that hadn't seen fresh paint in years. I parked outside and turned to her. Hungry? She nodded, her eyes soft. I could eat a galaxy. Inside, we slid into a red vinyl booth near the window. The waitress gave us a look like we didn't belong there, and maybe we didn't, but that made it better. It was our little moment of rebellion against everything ordinary. Over burgers and bottomless coffee, we talked again, this time about dreams, the kind you forget to chase when life starts piling up. I used to want to open a bookstore, she said between bites, one of those cozy ones with mismatched chairs and a resident cat. What stopped you? I asked. She looked out the window, then back at me. Everything I thought I had to be. I didn't answer. I just reached across the table and took her hand. You're still allowed to want it, I said. You're still allowed to start over. She held my gaze. And what about you, Jace? What are you running from? I smiled faintly. Maybe I'm not running. Maybe I'm just looking for something that makes me want to stay. Elena didn't say anything, but the way she looked at me, that said everything. The sun was just beginning to slip behind the hills when we left the diner. Back in the car, Elena didn't say much. Her fingers traced lazy circles on the passenger window like her mind was wandering far ahead of the road. I didn't ask. I just drove. About 20 minutes outside town, we saw a faded sign that read, Willow Ridge Lookout, Scenic Viewpoint 1 mile. I slowed down. You want to see it? She glanced over, hesitated, then nodded. Yeah, I think I do. We turned off the highway and followed the cracked, winding path up a hill. At the top was a wide gravel clearing, a rusted railing, and nothing but sky. The valley stretched out below us in every direction, layers of orange and gold shadows melting into the horizon. We got out and stood at the edge of the world. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then Elena said, I don't think I've stopped to look at something like this in years. I turned to her. Why not? She exhaled, slow and uneven. Because when you're trying to hold your life together, you don't dare look up. You keep your eyes down, your feet moving, and your heart numb. That hit hard. I didn't respond right away. I just stood next to her, quiet, present. Finally, I said, You don't have to look down anymore. She turned to me, really turned, and for a second I could see every version of her layered in that one look, the woman she used to be, the one she lost, and the one who was slowly learning how to come back. I don't know who I am without the weight, she whispered. I took her hand. Then maybe it's time to find out. She squeezed my fingers, not tightly, just enough to let me know she wasn't letting go. The wind picked up. The light deepened. And in that moment, there was no past. No tomorrow. Just now. Just us. We stayed at the lookout until the sky turned to velvet. The stars were just beginning to flicker through the fading light when Elena leaned back against the hood of the Dodge, her arms folded, her eyes tilted toward the heavens. "Do you ever wonder," she asked, "how many versions of you've already left behind?" I glanced at her, then followed her gaze upward. "Every time I leave a town, I think about that. Who I was there. What I carried." She nodded slowly. "I used to think I had to be one version forever, the responsible one, the wife, the team player, the fixer. And when it all crumbled, I didn't know who was left. I didn't rush to comfort her. She didn't need fixing. She needed truth. So I said, 'The people who broke you never had the right to define you.'" That made her go still. After a moment, she turned to me and said something I wasn't ready for. "I'm scared." Her voice cracked just enough to shake something loose in me, of what I asked softly, of starting to feel again, and losing it all again. I took a step closer, close enough that she could walk away if she needed to, but she didn't. "Elena, I said what we had today. It doesn't have to promise tomorrow. It just has to be real right now." She looked at me, really looked, and I could see the tears she wasn't letting fall. Then, almost shyly, she reached out and touched my chest right over my heartbeat. "I don't know how to do this," slowly, she whispered. "Then don't," I replied. "Let it be messy. Let it be honest. Just don't hide." She leaned forward and rested her forehead against mine. The desert was silent around us. No traffic, no voices, just breath and space and something beginning. Not love, not yet, but the possibility of it. And for the first time in years, she didn't pull away from that possibility. We didn't say much on the way back down the hill. There was no need. The silence between us had changed. It wasn't heavy or awkward anymore. It felt earned, like the kind that only exists between people who've shared something real, something that didn't need a name, yet just time. We pulled into town sometime after 9. The lights from gas stations and diners cast long shadows across empty streets. The world felt softer, quieter, like it was giving us space to figure out what came next. I slowed the car outside her motel. The same neon sign buzzed faintly overhead, same dusty parking lot. She stared at the building for a long moment, then turned to me. "Do you want to come in?" she asked. Her voice wasn't flirtatious. It wasn't even suggestive. It was careful, considered. I could tell she wasn't asking for romance. She was asking for safety, for presence. For a little while I said gently, "If that's okay?" She nodded once. "Yeah, that's okay." Inside, the room hadn't changed. The AC hummed from the corner, the curtain swayed from a breeze through a cracked window, and the scent of old motel linens lingered in the air. Elena kicked off her shoes, folded her arms, and looked at me like she wanted to speak, but didn't quite know how. So I spoke first. "You don't owe me anything," I said. "Not your story, not your time, not your trust." She looked down at her hands. "But I want to give it," she whispered. I stepped closer, slow, careful. And when she reached for me, it wasn't out of desperation. It was relief. We didn't kiss. We didn't even hold each other for long. We just sat side by side on the edge of the bed, our shoulders touching, our breaths sinking in the quiet. She turned her head, eyes searching mine. "Jace," she said, "if I fall apart, will you still stay?" I didn't hesitate. "I'm not here because you have it together. I'm here because you let me see the pieces." She exhaled shakily and leaned her head against my shoulder. And there we sat, two people who hadn't planned for any of this, who still didn't know what tomorrow looked like, but who for tonight weren't running anymore. The morning sunlight crept through the thin motel curtains, spilling across the floor in soft golden lines. Elena stirred beside me. We hadn't fallen asleep touching, but somehow we'd ended up close, our shoulders barely brushing, like our bodies had agreed to something before our minds caught up. She blinked against the light, then sat up slowly, brushing her hair behind one ear. No rush, no panic, just a stillness that felt earned. "Morning," I said, my voice gravelly from sleep. She glanced over and smiled, not a wide one, not automatic. A quiet, real kind of smile. I forgot how mornings could feel. "Safe," she whispered. We didn't need coffee or small talk right away. We just existed there in that fragile space between night and day where things are still honest and unspoken. Eventually, she stood stretched and pulled on her denim jacket. "Do you ever wake up and wonder if yesterday really happened?" she asked. I nodded. "All the time. But this feels like it did." She looked out the window, the morning light catching in her hair. "I have to go back," she said finally. "Not to the pain, not to the way things were, but to face what's left of it." I nodded slowly. "You don't have to run with me to keep moving forward." She turned back to me. I needed to remember I still had a choice, that I'm still allowed to feel something other than exhaustion, and now I think I'm ready to choose something better. I stood, walked over, and took her hand. Then, whatever this was, whatever it meant, it mattered, I said. "Even if it ends here." She looked up at me, eyes soft. "It doesn't have to end. Just change shape." We walked outside together. The same desert air, the same dusty parking lot. But everything felt different. She loaded her bag into her car. I leaned against my Dodge, hands in my pockets, heart steady. "I don't know what I'm walking into," she said, glancing over the roof of her car at me. "Just don't forget what you walked out of," I replied. She smiled again, wider this time. Then, unexpectedly, she stepped over to me, wrapped her arms around my waist, and hugged me. Fully, like someone who wasn't afraid of feeling anymore. "Thank you, Jace," she murmured, "for being real when I forgot how." And just like that, she got into her car, started the engine, and drove. No promises, no drama, just movement. As for me, I watched her taillights disappear down the highway. Then I got into my car, turned the key, and pulled back onto the road. But this time the road didn't feel so empty. It felt like I was carrying something with me now. Something quiet, something human, something like hope. It had been 3 months since that morning outside the motel, since Elena drove off toward a life she wasn't ready to abandon, and I turned back toward a road that had never promised permanence. In that time, I'd drifted farther north. Oregon, then Washington. I worked out of coffee shops with spotty Wi-Fi. I built a new playlist for every town. I talked to strangers and listened more than I spoke. But some days I'd catch myself looking out over a canyon or standing in line at a taco stand and think, what would Elena have said right now? Not because I missed her in some aching, dramatic way, but because part of me still carried her voice, her stillness. That version of myself she helped me unlock. I hadn't expected anything else. No texts, no letters, no reappearances. But then, one foggy afternoon in late October, I walked into a used bookstore in a coastal town, one of those places where the air smells like paper and time, and saw a woman crouched in the back corner reorganizing a shelf by author last name. At first, I didn't recognize her. She was wearing a cardigan, hair shorter now, glasses, but the way she tucked her hair behind her ear, I knew that hand. "Elena," I said, almost a whisper. She turned, and there it was, that slow smile I remembered. Not startled, not shocked, just warm recognition. "Jace," she said, like it was the most natural thing in the world. I stood there for a moment, stunned. "You work here?" She nodded. "Co-own it now, actually. With my sister." A beat passed, then she added softly, "I opened the bookstore." And that moment broke me a little in the best way. "You did it," I said. "You actually did it." She stood brushing her hands on her jeans. "You said I was allowed to want it, so I let myself want it." We stared at each other, the quiet filling in the blanks neither of us needed to rush to explain. Finally, she tilted her head. "You passing through?" "Always," I smiled. "But I've got a few days." She nodded slowly. "Well then, let me show you the best reading chair in town." And just like that, we sat two different people than we were under that desert sun, but still carrying the same truth. Some connections don't need maps. They just find their way back. The chair she led me to was tucked in the back corner of the shop next to a cracked window that let in just enough October light to read by. The place was everything she'd once described, and more: cozy chaos, mismatched rugs, handwritten signs taped to the walls. There was even a calico cat asleep in a basket of poetry books. Elena sat across from me in an armchair that didn't match mine but belonged beside it. She pulled her knees up and smiled with that same gentle certainty that had once disarmed me in the desert. "I never thought I'd see you again," I said, almost laughing at how surreal it felt. She shrugged softly. "I didn't expect you to walk through that door either, but I hoped." I raised an eyebrow. "You hoped?" Her smile didn't waver. "Sometimes the universe gives you one more chance to get it right." I leaned back, taking her in, not the version of Elena I'd met by the roadside, not even the one I said goodbye to months ago, but a woman who had chosen herself and then maybe the idea of us again. "I've been thinking about staying," I admitted. That surprised her. I saw it flicker in her eyes before she masked it with a slow, careful breath. "Staying where? Here? This town? I don't know. Maybe I'm tired of being a passenger in my own story." Elena nodded slowly. "I used to believe roots were traps. Turns out I was just scared of planting in the wrong place." We sat like that for a long while, bookstore quiet tea steeping in a corner, the hum of something unspoken weaving its way through the shelves around us. Then she said it. "I'm not asking you to stay. I know. But if you did—" She hesitated, eyes finding mine. I wouldn't run this time. I reached across the space between us, not to grab her hand, but to close the gap we both had been circling for months. "I'm not asking for a promise," I whispered. She met me halfway. "Good," she said, "because I'm only giving you today." And that was enough. That day became another. Then a week. Then a life neither of us had seen coming. And in the middle of it all, a bookstore in a sleepy coastal town where a calico cat guarded poems and a quiet chair by the window always waited for us became the kind of ending that wasn't really an ending at all. Just the start of something real. Something chosen. Together. So what was this really, a fleeting encounter or something deeper than either of them expected? Some might say it was reckless, that you shouldn't fall into connection with a stranger on a lonely highway. Others might call it fate, two broken people meeting at the exact moment they needed someone who didn't ask for explanations. Was it love? Was it healing? Or was it just a reminder that not everything has to last forever to matter? But here's the real question. Would you have gotten in the car, or would you have walked away from something that felt real just because it wasn't planned? Let me know in the comments. I want to hear your take. Follow me so I'll have the motivation to create more powerful stories like this. Or encourage me by pressing the number 1. Your support means more than you know.